Back in 1978, my husband Yannick was pressuring me to give up my job for his first love. The widow Violette. In my past life, I broke my leg for him. Worked tirelessly for 10 years. Only to be cast out of our home by him and his illegitimate child. This time, I smiled. Work? Fine. You can have it. Men? I don't need them anymore. I turned around, sold all my dowry, took the money and a letter of recommendation to Shanghai, and watched him and his first love sink into the mire amidst the spit of the factory workers. The suffocating feeling, that choking sensation that had been slowly killing me, still burned in my throat. I opened my eyes suddenly, only to see Yannick's face full of impatience. He was wearing a brand new blue work suit, issued by the steel plant, making his skin look fair, almost like a city dweller. Give the position in the supply and marketing department to Violette, he said. His tone wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. Her husband just had an accident in the mine. The compensation isn't enough to get her settled. A widow with a sickly mother-in-law. It's just too much. Familiar words. Familiar scene. In my past life, this was where everything started spiraling down into a dead end. I argued with him. I caused a scene. Even Serafini, his mother who was still the head of the factory committee, got involved. And what was the result? The position gone. My face ruined. Serafini pointed at me and scolded. Everyone in the staff dormitory is laughing at you. Throwing a tantrum over a petty position. Just like a country bumpkin with no manners. How laughable. At the time, this cushy job in the supply and marketing department was compensation they, the Liu family, had voluntarily given me. Yannick, the university graduate who went down to the countryside for some polish, was regarded as something precious. He was the person the village party secretary had specifically asked me to take care of. But 8 months ago, a fire broke out in the grain warehouse by the drying yard in our village. He was knocked unconscious by the thick smoke. And it was me, with my own leg, who pushed him out from under the collapsing grain stack. The beam fell, and my leg was ruined. In return for his life, he said, under the watchful eyes of the entire village, that he would marry me. Serafini, for her good reputation, used her connections to arrange this dead-end position for me in the factory. I became Yannick's monument of gratitude, standing in the middle of his life's journey, with everyone singing praises of his loyalty and righteousness. And I became a cripple. Now, in this life, I was ready to make a change. I didn't need a man. I certainly didn't need this so-called favor. I lowered my head, letting my long hair cover the cold light in my eyes, and spoke in a voice as calm as still water. Fine. Just tell Mom. Yannick, ready with a mouthful of self-righteous words, had them caught in his throat. He paused, and coughed a few times to cover his surprise, before switching to a lecturing tone. You've got it right, Kyra. Don't worry. Even if you don't work, as long as I'm here. Yannick, you'll always have food to eat. He paused again, emphasizing, Violette has nothing left. This job is her lifeline. I lifted my eyes and stared at him without blinking. Are you done? That looked cold. Unfamiliar. Like staring at a lifeless piece of trash. Yannick's heart skipped a beat. A wave of shame and irritation washing over him. I couldn't be bothered to listen to his nonsense anymore. I braced myself against the bed, limped as I began to rummage through the drawers. My dowry. The sewing machine my parents had saved half their lives for. The few new pieces of cloth. My bicycle tickets. He was completely ignored by me. His face flushed with embarrassment as he slammed the door behind him. The door thudded shut. But I didn't stop. It wasn't until I found a crumpled red-headed paper inside a dusty old biscuit tin under the bed that I finally exhaled deeply. It was the internal notice from the steel plant, listing the recommended candidates for training at the Shanghai headquarters. In my past life, I had been too busy arguing with him. By the time I found this notice, he'd casually tossed aside. The recommendation date had already passed by 2 months. The job went to Violette, and I missed my chance to go to Shanghai. My wedding was delayed. It wasn't until he was transferred to the branch plant that we hastily held a couple of tables of drinks. And he handed me a marriage certificate. Then came 10 years of long-distance separation. Oh no. It was actually their double happiness. Violette followed him to the branch plant. Wherever he went, she went. And I? I was stuck in a factory dormitory, taking care of his grandmother who had been paralyzed for 3 years. And his parents. My crippled leg never had a peaceful day in 10 years. The child I finally managed to conceive was lost. Thanks to Violette's kindness of sending me a bowl of hawthorn soup, I took care of the elderly, buried the sick, and finally left for the northern city. He stuffed me into a small single dormitory and never showed his face again. The factory workers only knew Yannick had a distant, poor relative from the countryside. No one knew it was me. He died on the job. An accident so close to me. But no one notified me. It was Violette, with a boy of 7 or 8 in tow, who brought me his signed will and an already altered household registration book, and booted me out of that little room as if I were some old rag. I sacrificed my leg, my whole life, for him, hadn't fulfilled my intention. Yannick. And all I got in return was a broken relationship. Turns out, they were already living happily with children of their own. How wonderful. That suffocating feeling rose again. I gasped for air, pressing the red-headed paper against my chest, smoothing it out, and weighing it down. At least now, it wasn't too late. I hadn't married him yet. Though my leg was crippled, my life could still be rebuilt. I wrapped up the 3 wedding items: my bicycle tickets, sewing machine tickets, and the 2 Shanghai brand watches my father had sent via messenger, and bundled them in cloth. In the late 1970s, these things were more valuable than money. With my crippled leg, I didn't go to the black market. Instead, I went straight to the factory's family compound, seeking out the wives of department heads who had some influence and power. As soon as I showed them the items, their eyes turned green with greed. It didn't take much effort. I traded the sewing machine and bicycle tickets for 210 yuan, plus a fixed stack of colorful vouchers. The watches fetched even more, swapping for 300 yuan. At this time, a formal worker's monthly salary was only around 30 yuan. With over 500 yuan in my pocket, I felt like my back had straightened. Walking out of the family compound, I ran into Yannick. Standing beside him was Violette, in a simple white dress. Violette had just lost her man, but she showed no sign of sorrow. Instead, she had a kind of sickly beauty, paired with a teary-eyed expression that would stir a man's protective instincts. When Yannick saw me, his smile froze, his eyes flickering as if he had been caught in the act. I couldn't help but sneer in my heart. Did he think I didn't know his hypocritical mind? I kept my eyes straight ahead, pretending not to see, and limped past them. Qiira, Violette called softly, stopping me. Don't get me wrong, I just happened to run into Yannick. It was on the way. Yannick hurried to explain. Qiira, it was an accident. Don't overthink it. I halted, turned slowly, and forced a smile. It's fine. I'm not overthinking. My gaze swept them both once. Carry on. Qiira. Violette stepped forward and blocked my path, her eyes rimmed red. I know you've been upset about the job situation, but I really had no choice. Yannick felt sorry for me. I don't want us to be estranged because of me. Who was she performing for? I looked her up and down: a polyester dress, clean little leather shoes. Pale? Yes. But not a trace of a widow's wasted look. And me patched coarse cloth, leather-worn face. Still limping. In my last life I shrank away before her out of shame. This time, I wanted to rip that face off her. My smile broadened. Quiet, but loud enough that the neighbors within earshot lifted their heads. Is that so? Since you put it that way, why don't we let everyone judge? I said. You say your family's in trouble. But look at you, dressed finer than the married women around here. And I leaned in close and dropped my voice to a hiss. Your man's 7-day mourning hasn't even passed. And you're being so friendly with another man. In our village we have a saying, Wang Men Feng. It means, you bring bad luck to your husband. That kind of gossip isn't good for a family. Is it? Each word hit where it hurt. Violette's color drained in an instant. She staggered. turned and threw herself at Yannick. Tears pouring as if someone had turned on a faucet. Yannick. Listen to her. How can she say such things about me? Qiira. Yannick's face flushed dark with fury and shame. What do you think you're saying? Apologize to Violette. Apologize? For what? Who would apologize for the wrongful death in my last life? I was done arguing. I turned and walked away. Behind me came Yannick's furious curses and Violette's whimpering. Country bumpkin, no manners. Crudity. Fine. If I was uncouth, so be it. Soon I'd be back in the city. A cultured person. I tucked the money into my pocket and went home in a very good mood. In the glow of the sunset I threaded the tiny holes in my scorched shirt, stitch by stitch. With the finest, most careful seams. Soon that shirt would be like new. And my life would be too. Yannick didn't come home for 3 days. On the 4th night he stumbled in reeking of alcohol and kicked the door open. He tossed his briefcase on the table and barked orders at me, as if I were beneath him. Make a few good dishes for lunch tomorrow. Invite when Huey over. You'll apologize to her in person. I was sewing by the lamp and didn't even look up. No money. He froze. What do you mean? No money? Didn't I give you your allowance last month? For your grandmother's medicine. For your father's cigarettes and liquor. Those new clothes of yours didn't pay for themselves. It's all gone. I set the needle down and looked at him calmly. Or do you expect me to make a table of air to apologize with? He was speechless. Trapped by my bluntness. A proud man who hands his wages over still has to keep face. After a long minute he dug some crumpled bills from an inner pocket and slapped them on the table. Is this enough? When you're hosting, there should be meat and fish. I said. Not mincing words. I took the money, smoothing it carefully before tucking it away. And Violette needs fattening up by more meat. Seeing me take the money settled him. His tone softened. Good. When Huey hasn't had it easy. Be nicer to her. I said nothing. Only smiled. The next day Yannick fussed and helped Violette upstairs as if they'd been married a decade. She wore a figure showing floral dress and a light dusting of powder, no trace of the sorrow of a man lost. I bustled about. Soon the table was covered, braised pig's trotters, peanuts stewed with chicken feet, and a plate of pig's liver fried with sesame oil. All rich, fatty good food. In my last life, the child I never had been lost by a bowl of Violette's hawthorn soup placed with something extra. I remembered clearly Violette herself must have just been carrying her own posthumous child then. 2. Qiira. Your cooking is so good, Violette said, plopping down beside Yannick without a hint of acknowledging me as the hostess. She eagerly popped a piece of trotter into her mouth. Yannick looked pleased. See? She knows her place. I didn't sit. I stood at the kitchen doorway like a servant awaiting orders. But before Violette could swallow, her face went ashy. She clamped a hand over her mouth, gagged, and shoved past Yannick into the bathroom. Ugh, the sound of retching rent the air. When Huey? When? What's wrong? Yannick paced outside the door. Frantic. A while later Violette reappeared. Deathly pale and clinging to the doorframe. Eyes brimming. Aggrieved. Yannick. This food. It's so greasy. I can't, she faltered and shot me a resentful look. Qiira. I know you don't welcome me, but. Yannick's temper flared and he turned to scold me. That's not true. He shoved a piece of trotter into his mouth and chewed. It's not greasy, tastes fine. He was a crude man who didn't notice such things. Violette's embarrassment deepened and she forced a smile. Maybe my stomach's been off these few days. You wouldn't happen to be pregnant, would you? I cut in casually. My voice was low, but it dropped like a thunderclap that stunned everyone in the room. Yannick reacted first. His brows knotted. Qiira. Don't talk nonsense. When Huey's man has been gone for half a year. Don't be like the gossiping hens in this village. Stirring up trouble. In my last life I kept my mouth shut. This life. No one would make me swallow my pride. How's that stirring up gossip? I looked him straight in the eye and stepped out of the kitchen. You eat it just fine. Why does she throw up? Her reaction is exactly the same as when my sister-in-law was carrying my eldest nephew back then. I closed in on them. My gaze was a blade digging into their guilty spots. If you think I'm spreading rumors, go get a hospital test. Or perhaps she is spending every day together. This child is yours. That cut deep. Yannick's face shifted from red to purple as if I had been poured through it. You spat lies at me. Shut up. Violette went white as paper. Her hand trembled as she pointed at me. You. Before she could finish speaking, Violette's eyes rolled back, and she collapsed straight into Yannick's arms. Yannick, you leave too. Didn't bother arguing with me anymore. He scooped her up and rushed out as if his pants were on fire. At home, everything instantly fell silent. I leisurely sat down, served myself a bowl of rice, and ate it contentedly with a spread of delicious dishes. That night, Yannick didn't return. Perfectly timed. My quiet days had arrived early. Yannick was absent again for several days, likely staying at the hospital with his precious Violette. But Serafini, his mother, had returned. Serafini usually worked long hours and stayed in the factory's single dormitory. She didn't visit our marital home often. Since the resumption of the college entrance exams, she'd been even busier, serving as the head of the factory's affiliated school. In my past life, my relationship with her was as cold as ice. But living again, I knew that Serafini valued face and reputation above all else, and deeply despised Violette's flirtatious manner. She wasn't my friend, but she could be my weapon. When I saw her come back, I immediately boiled water for tea, offered to massage her back and shoulders, and acted like a long-suffering wife who had endured immense grievances but silently bore them. Seeing me act so understanding, her expressions softened considerably. We chatted aimlessly for a while when the courtyard door creaked open. Yannick entered, supporting a fragile Violette, who seemed to sway like a willow in the wind. Qiira. Before they even crossed the threshold, Yannick's booming voice called out. Quick, clean up a room for Wen Hui. She's sick and weak. The doctor says she needs rest. She's staying with us for the next few days. Smack. The teacup in Serafini's hand slammed hard onto the table. Her face turned as dark as ink, and it seemed like she could almost squeeze out black ink from her fury. Yannick, get in here. Serafini's voice, laced with unassailable authority, rang out. Only then did Yannick realize his mother was home. His expression changed, and he could only grit his teeth and led Violette into the house. What was all this talk about pregnancy in the courtyard yesterday? Serafini's voice was as cold as ice. Today, the gossip has reached my ears. You and Qiira's marriage, get the date settled now. Don't wait until the whole city is talking about it. And we, the Yannick family, are made a laughingstock. Yannick clearly didn't take kindly to this. Mom, when Huey and I are innocent, it's all Qiira's lies. He snapped back. Now, everyone at the factory is spreading rumors about Wen Huey, almost driving her to the edge. I brought her back to keep an eye on her, so she doesn't do something foolish. Then why bring this woman back into our home? Serafini's anger boiled over, her finger jabbing at his nose. Don't you think there's already enough gossip as it is? She's a widow with no one to take care of her. If I don't help, who will? Yannick shot back defiantly. No, Serafini slammed the table, rejecting his reasoning outright. This woman will not stay in this house. Hearing this, Violette lowered her head, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Her pitiful appearance almost broke Yannick's heart. Mom, why are you all so cold-blooded? He pulled Violette up suddenly. If you won't let Wen Huey stay, I'll take her elsewhere. I won't abandon her. With that, he dragged Violette out without a second glance. Serafini, furious with her foolish son, suddenly lost her breath and collapsed into the chair, clutching her chest. I rushed to her side, helping her steady herself and pat her chest to help her breathe. After what felt like an eternity, she finally recovered, her hand reaching for mine. For the first time, there was some warmth in her eyes. Good child. I'm sorry. It's Yannick's fault. Don't take it to heart, she sighed. Listen, let out a low sigh. The wedding can't be delayed any longer. You should go home and talk to your father. We'll arrange a meeting between both families and settle this. We don't want things to drag on longer. That was the sentence I had been waiting for. A spark of brilliance flashed in my eyes. But I quickly lowered my gaze. Speaking timidly. Mom. Marriage is a big deal. I should speak to my dad. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. You should. It's time. Sarafini nodded, clearly pleased with my understanding decision. If there's any trouble at home, come to me. Yannick's an idiot. But I'm not senile yet. I obediently nodded. Sarafini's goal was clear, to use the wedding to silence the gossip and protect the Yannick family's reputation. My goal was simple, use this legitimate reason to escape this swamp for good. She had given me an I famed at her own son. How could I not make good use of it? Sarafini, fearing that her son might stir up more trouble, was incredibly efficient. The very next morning, she personally bought me a train ticket to the south. Before I left, she unusually pulled out a red cloth bundle from an old wooden box and stuffed it into my hand. Take this. It's 200 yuan. Buy something nice for your parents. It's a small token from the Yannick family. The rest is for your journey. In my past life, I didn't get this treatment. Back then, I was foolish and impulsive. My disputes with Yannick over work became the talk of the town. And I embarrassed Sarafini. She couldn't stand me. The wedding, too, was as cheap as possible. Done hastily. Now, holding that thick bundle of cash, I felt no stirrings in my heart. I accepted it. After all, this was the Yannick family's debt to me. Yannick still hadn't returned. Violette was probably hiding somewhere with him. Fine, heading fulfilled wide sigh. It saved me from being annoyed by her presence. I had packed up everything long ago, leaving only a small bundle. The dowry my parents had given me had already been converted into money. The bedding, basin, and kettle that Yannick's family had bought for me remained untouched, neatly stacked in the corner, covered by an old sheet. Just like covering a corpse. I glanced at the painting on the wall one I had bought a few days ago. A tacky 100 years of harmonious marriage motif with mandarin ducks. Cheap. And ironic. I took it down and flipped it face down on the table. Every trace of me had been meticulously erased. I quickly finished packing without a second thought. The shirt I had carefully mended was the one I wore. In my pocket was the internal recommendation form to Shanghai that I had kept for so long. It needed the village secretary's stamp, which my father could handle. Now, I could start my new life openly. Before heading to the station, I stopped by the hospital. Not for anything else, but to send Yannick and Violette a gift. In those days, there were no anonymous tip lines. But there were letters from the people. One was sent to the factory's discipline inspection committee, stating that Violette had engaged in improper conduct with Yannick while her husband's body was still warm, harming the factory's reputation. Another was sent directly to Violette's commune. In the letter, it simply kindly mentioned, I hear Violette's family daughter is pregnant in the city, about to give her late husband an heir. What a virtuous and righteous woman. Truly, a joy and honor. A woman carrying the child of 2 men during this era. That would be enough to drown her in a flood of spit. As for whose child it really was, that didn't matter at all. What mattered was, her life would never be peaceful again. The moment I stepped onto the southbound train, the station was filled with the deafening noise of the crowd. The whistle of the train echoed as white steam burst out, veiling the platform and hiding all the scenes of parting. I didn't leave a letter. Not a single word. Such things would only make it seem like I still had lingering feelings. Instead, I left something beneath Yannick's pillow. A small baby sock, carefully mended with red thread. It was the only thing left from the child I never had the chance to give birth to in my past life. Let this grudge, this unsolvable mystery, stay like a poisonous thorn, embedded forever in their hearts. Yannick's and Violette's tormenting them day and night. The train slowly pulled out, the steel mill growing farther and farther away. The tall chimneys, spewing thick black smoke, loomed like giant gravestones, burying the first half of my life. I rested my head against the cold window, as if I could see. Just days later, Yannick returning to the empty room, discovering the sock beneath his pillow with terror. I could imagine it when news of Violette's pregnancy reached her hometown. Her widowed mother would be mercilessly cursed by the villagers. And Serafini, the woman who valued her pride more than life itself, how would her face look when her precious son became the laughingstock of the entire factory? They thought I, Kuira, had gone back to the countryside to discuss marriage matters. They were wrong. I had gone home to transfer my household registration, get a recommendation letter, and go to Shanghai. The day I arrived in Shanghai, the air was thick with coal dust and humidity. Everything here was new and unfamiliar. The factory-provided dormitory was an 8-person room. And after work, it was noisy with people speaking various dialects. My limp felt out of place in this city, where efficiency and speed were paramount. The early days were tough. I kept up with the theory lessons, but the practical training required long hours of standing. By the end of the day, my injured leg ached as though it were being pierced by a dozen glowing iron rods. I didn't complain. When the pain became unbearable, I pinched the webbing of my hand, using the sharp pain to distract myself, while others rested during breaks, chatting and playing cards. I went to the corner of the workshop, repeatedly disassembling and reassembling discarded parts, learning the gears interlocking and the paths of each wire. My clumsiness and stubbornness caught the attention of one person. He was the senior technician responsible for teaching us apprentices. Soren was a well-known expert in the factory, but his temper was famously eccentric. He didn't say a word. The next day, he placed a small low stool by my dorm room door. "If you're tired of standing, sit while you work," he said as he passed by, his voice harsh, like rusted iron. From then on, that little stool became my privilege. In the workshop, no one dared gossip, for my theoretical grades were always the best, and I kept up with the practical work, sometimes faster than some able-bodied male colleagues. I silenced them all with my abilities. My life became like a wind-up clock, precise, repetitive, and undistracted. I thought that factory in the north, the dirty people and affairs, had been left far behind, buried forever. Until a month later, I received a letter. The envelope was made of craft paper, with no return address, no signature. The postmark was barely legible, but I could make out it came from the city I had left behind. Inside the envelope was a small piece of paper, torn from a notebook. In pencil, 5 crooked words were written. "He knows you're here." In that instant, the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Shanghai was so vast, how could he know? Who had written this letter? A warning? Or a more sinister trap? I gripped the note tightly, my knuckles turning white. Beneath the calm surface, an undercurrent of danger was quietly rising. Half a month after I left, an unprecedented storm broke out in the family compound of the steel mill. At the center of the storm were Yannick and Violette. The little baby sock I had left behind acted like a triggered mine, blowing Yannick's family skyge. Yannick went mad, relentlessly questioning Violette. Whose child was it? Really? How could he not have seen their affair? Violette swore up and down that it was my malicious fabrication, my last act of revenge before leaving. But 2 letters, one to the factory's disciplinary committee, the other to Violette's hometown commune, became the last straw that broke the camel's back. Violette's pregnancy spread throughout the factory overnight. Her husband's body hadn't even turned to dust, and she was already carrying another man's child. In those days, when moral integrity was placed above all else, this was no less than a public execution. Serafini, the woman who valued her pride above life, became the biggest joke in the factory. Wherever she went, people were whispering behind her back. The factory organized a critique session. At the meeting, Serafini, desperate to protect herself and draw a clear line between herself and this shameless future daughter-in-law, took the stage in tears, accusing Violette of seducing her innocent son and ruining a marriage that should have been perfect. She dumped all the blame on Violette. Yannick stood at the back, watching his mother and his beloved woman tear each other apart, his face turning alternately blue and pale. He wanted to defend Violette, but every word he said only sounded like an accusation. He asked her when she had started plotting against him. Was the man who died in the mine just a stepping stone for her to escape the small county town? Violette clutched her stomach, tears streaming down her face. She pointed at Yannick and screamed, "Yannick! What kind of man are you? You promised to be good to me. To take care of me for life. Now when something goes wrong, you push everything onto me? The child in her belly became her only shield, but also the rope around both their necks. No one pitied them. The neighbors in the compound thought they were watching a spectacular drama unfold. After the storm passed, Violette gave birth to the child. It was a boy. She successfully strangled the rope completely. She moved into the Yannick family's house. But what awaited her was not a life of happiness. It was Serafini's cold, relentless glares and daily torment. Meanwhile, Yannick, due to behavioral issues, was transferred to the factory's hardest and most exhausting coking workshop. He dealt with coal dust every day, and the university graduate halo that once surrounded him, along with his bright future, were all shattered. That room, which was supposed to be mine as a wedding gift, turned into a new hell, one that exclusively belonged to them. A year flew by. By then, I had firmly established myself in Shanghai. Because of my excellent skills, I became Soren's apprentice and was specially approved to become a permanent technical worker, even acquiring my own dedicated workstation. Though my leg was still lame, to my colleagues, that limp was a mark of resilience and excellence. No one looked at me strangely anymore. That afternoon, I was testing a new imported machine in the workshop when Warwick, the gatekeeper, rushed in, panting. "Qiira, there's a woman outside looking for you. She says she's from your old workplace." My heart skipped a beat. Stepping out of the workshop and into the sunlight, I saw the last person I thought I'd ever encounter again. Serafini. A year had passed, and she looked at least 10 years older. Her hair had turned mostly white. Her face was etched with undeniable exhaustion and weariness. When she saw me, a flicker of complex emotion sparked in her murky eyes. She wasn't here to accuse me. We should talk. She lowered her tone, her voice carrying a hint of pleading. We sat down in a small restaurant by the factory gate. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She got straight to the point. "Qiira, I know. It's our Yannick family who wronged you." I didn't respond. Just silently stared at her. "Yannick. His life is ruined. Violette, that wretched woman, had a son, and now she's causing chaos at home. Our life is like hell." She paused, then pulled out a thick envelope from her bag and slid it toward me. "I know you hate us. But now, only you can save Yannick." She actually wanted me to return to testify against Violette, to tell the factory leaders that Violette had cheated on Yannick while married, seducing a married man. With my testimony, Yannick would only face a behavioral error. But Violette, she would be exposed as morally corrupt, a living version of Pan Jinlian. She wanted to crush Violette completely, then pull her son from the mire. "Here's 500 yuan. If you're willing to help us, I'll immediately have Yannick divorce you. From then on, you'll be free of him." Her eyes were filled with sharp calculation. 500 yuan. A price to buy me back. To make me her tool. To wade through the muck. In my previous life, I never saw this much money. I smiled. Slowly, I pushed the envelope back toward her. "Serafini," I said, calling her by her old title, each word clear and cold. "Your family's matters have nothing to do with me. Qiira. Anymore." She froze. "I don't care how miserable you're living. And I'm not interested. Your suffering is your own choice. And it has nothing to do with me." I picked up my teacup and took a sip. "As for the divorce, that's easy. But if you think I'll go back and be your pawn." I looked at her as her face turned pale. Each word deliberate. "You don't deserve it." In that instant, I saw the calculation in her eyes shatter into pure despair. Serafini left in tears. I never saw her again. But I knew this wasn't over. A month later, the one person I least wanted to see still came looking for me. Yannick. He stormed straight to the building where I lived in the shared dorms. At that moment, he was a far cry from the clean, scholarly figure I remembered. He wore a faded, old work uniform, stained with oil that could never be cleaned. He was dark, thin, his eyes sunken, His hair messy, he radiated a stench of coke and despair. When he saw me, his bloodshot eyes were filled with madness. He rushed at me, reaching for my hand, but I sidestepped and dodged him. Xianxia. His voice was hoarse, like it had been scraped raw. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. He began to recount the pain he'd suffered over the past year. Violette's unreasonable behavior. Serafini's sharpness. The inhumane life in the coking workshop. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let the pig fat cloud my mind. I shouldn't have let you down. Let's start over. Okay? Come back with me. And we'll kick that wretched woman and her bastard child out. We'll live a good life. His logic was absurd. Laughable. He wasn't here to repent. He saw me as his last lifeline. The only way to escape is hell. He still thought I was the same Xianxia. The one who used to quietly mend his clothes. The one who handed him hot water after work. He was stuck in the past. I looked at him coldly, as though he were a hysterical stranger. Yannick, et infilceld ma. I interrupted his pleas. Go back. It's over between us. No. It's not over. He suddenly pulled something from his pocket, clutching it tightly in his palm. Then opened it up to show me. It was that baby sock. It was worn and dirty from being rubbed too much. Look. This is what you left me. I know you still care about me. About our child. I know it. He was drowning, clinging to this final illusion. Just then, Soren walked over from outside. He saw Yannick pestering me and raised an eyebrow. Standing silently in front of me. Xianxia. Is something wrong? Soren's voice was steady and commanding. It's nothing. Soren. I shook my head. Just asking for directions. Yannick saw the natural authority emanating from Soren. The way he silently defended me. He froze. In that moment, he finally realized I was no longer the village girl who had once needed him. I had my own circle now. Respected mentors. And a new world that he could never enter. His face shifted from madness to an ashen, hollow color. At the end of despair wasn't resignation, but insanity. Yannick's pitiful male pride shattered when he saw Soren. He couldn't accept that the woman he once saw as an accessory was now living a better life than he was, better than his best days. The next day, he stormed into the factory leadership's office. He filed a formal complaint against me. He accused me, Xianxia, of moral corruption. Of having illicit affairs with other men in the village while still married, and later, of abandoning my husband and child, running off to Shanghai with the family's money. He wanted to destroy me. Since he couldn't return to his heaven, he was determined to drag me from my paradise down into hell with him. The factory leadership called me in for a meeting. In the office sat Zephyr, the head of HR, and Soren, who looked worried. Yannick sat across from me, wearing a sickly, vengeful smirk on his face. I calmly listened to all his lies. Then, went out a low sigh. From my briefcase, I pulled out a stack of documents. The first was the study referral I had received when I left the steel mill years ago, stamped with a bright red official seal. The second was my household registration transfer form, personally approved by my father, who served as the village secretary. The last one was the most important. It was a thin sheet of official material, in the most formal language. It read, Comrade Xianxia. Due to serious personal conduct issues with her spouse, Comrade Yannick, which have caused immense emotional harm to Comrade Xianxia, and to prevent further escalation of the conflict, in accordance with the principle of humanitarian care, the factory committee has decided to approve Comrade Xianxia's long-term technical training at the Shanghai General Factory. Her personnel records will remain under the factory's care for the time being. At the bottom was Serafini's handwritten signature. The date was the day before I left. This document was something I had gifted to Serafini with 200 yuan, in exchange for a chance at a future for her son. She thought it was a silent agreement between the two of us. What she didn't know was that it had become my indestructible shield. Comrade Yannick. Zephyr, who sat across from me, now had a cold expression. As you can see, Xianxia's transfer was both reasonable and compliant, and was even personally approved by your mother. Zephyr paused, his tone turning stern. As for the rumors about personal conduct issues, Perhaps you should explain why your wife was forced to leave for another place due to your severe personal conduct issues? Yannick stared at the document. At his mother's familiar handwriting. His body slumping as if his spine had been drained. He collapsed into the chair. He lost. He lost utterly. From start to finish. Every step of mine had been under the light. And he had turned himself into nothing but a clown. I didn't watch as the factory security took Yannick away. I only remembered that when I walked out of the office, Soren looked at me with those knowing eyes that had seen the world's cruelty. And there was no investigation in his gaze, only a trace of pity. Kid. He patted my shoulder. It's all over now. Yes, Kid, it was all over. That winter. The factory chose its only representative to attend the National Youth Skills Competition in Beijing. And Soren, against all opposition, put my name forward. He said, "Our factory is going to show the whole country how a one-legged girl beats a group of big men." The day I left for Beijing, Shanghai had a light snow. On the platform, Soren and several colleagues from the workshop came to see me off. Just as the train was about to depart, I pulled out the baby sock I had carried with me for over a year. This little thing, which in my past life had borne all my maternal love and sorrow, had now become the sharpest weapon in my path of revenge. Its mission was complete. I looked at it, feeling an unprecedented calm in my heart. I walked to the trash can on the platform, released it from my hand, and watched it float gently inside, landing on my old train ticket stub from the north to Shanghai, which had long since expired. There was no turning back, no lingering. I turned away and boarded the train bound for Beijing. The train clattered against the tracks, its sound crushing the wind and snow behind me. And with it, the painful past I could never look back on. In the year of our golden wedding, I quietly passed away in my sleep, and the carousel of memories suddenly lit up. In 1972, when Milton, a sent-down youth, went to the countryside, I honored my future mother-in-law and supported the Milton family with my meager salary. In 1975, while Milton was working with Autumn, exchanging glances, I worked tirelessly day and night, earning the dowry to marry me. In 1977, as Milton and Autumn played out a tragic love story, I had just given birth to a child. And in the confinement period, I washed his clothes, which left me with a lingering illness. In 1985, Milton went south to do business, traveling the beautiful mountains and rivers of our country with Autumn, while I was busy working to support the family and raise our child. At my funeral, he finally walked into the Milton family with Autumn, and the children, who only knew to complain about the food, said, "Mom, Autumn, from now on we'll treat you as our own mother." When I opened my eyes again, the calendar read the vibrant red 1975. There were 2 years left before the college entrance examination would resume. "Sylvia, why hasn't my dress from yesterday been washed yet?" Milton's mother, lazily reclining on the rocking chair in the yard, asked as she cracked sunflower seeds. I suddenly opened my eyes, and the surrounding environment felt both strange and familiar. It was the Milton family in the small county where we used to live. Milton's mother, who had passed away 10 years ago, was now alive and well, standing before me. I couldn't believe my eyes and called out dumbfounded, "Mom, I haven't agreed to let you in yet." "Don't call me that." She cracked sunflower seeds, spitting out saliva. "If the Milton family hadn't fallen on hard times, with your father gone early, and all the property seized, how could someone like Milton ever marry you? With your poor background." It was the same old rhetoric, one I had heard since I was 20, all the way to 50. It wasn't until Milton's mother spent her last years bedridden and that she softened her tone and no longer mentioned how I wasn't good enough for her proud son. I threw the broom aside and rushed inside. On the table was a brand new radio, a dowry I had bought with half a year's savings. The old-fashioned calendar on the wall boldly read the year 1975. 1975, when I was 20, about to marry the returning youth. "Milton." Milton's mother came in, scolding. "You dare throw the broom at me?" "Fine," having fulfilled Layad's sigh. "Milton will be back in a few days. And when I tell him, let's see if you can still marry into the Milton family." Milton hadn't returned yet, And I hadn't married him yet. That was just perfect. Milton's mother. I called her. I won't marry your son anymore. What did you say? The door opened. And a tired Milton stood there. Luggage in hand, looking at me in disbelief. At 25. He was tall and handsome. The dream lover of many girls. In my past life. It was his appearance that captured me. And I willingly gave up my entire life for him. Only at the end did I realize I had supported the Milton family while he supported a small family with Autumn. Even my children knew this. And they said that Milton had only married me out of a sense of duty. While with Autumn, they were soulmates who I had hindered. So at my funeral, they eagerly welcomed Autumn into the Milton family. If I could do it all over again. I didn't want that hypocritical Milton anymore. I didn't want the heartless children either. I looked at the man I had loved for most of my life and said with a smile, "Are your ears deaf?" I said I'm not marrying into the Milton family to be a free nanny anymore. Milton's face turned extremely ugly. And his mother cried and tugged at him. Look at the wife you chose. Just scold her a bit. And she throws things and makes threats. I absolutely refused to allow this marriage. Milton closed his eyes. His tone filled with righteousness. Sylvia, have you really thought this through? I'm grateful for the 3 years you've taken care of the house. If you're willing to apologize to my mother, I'll still fulfill my promise to you. In 1972, just before Milton went to the countryside, he said to me, "From now on, you'll have to take care of my mom. When I return, I'll marry you." I was overjoyed. Even as Milton's mother made things difficult for me, I felt hopeful for the future. Little did I know. For me, having fulfilled my obsession, this promise was a vow of love. But to Milton, it was just a responsibility that bound him. Later, during countless arguments with Autumn, he furrowed his brows and said, "I ruined my own love to marry you out of gratitude. What more do you want from me?" Many nights, tears soaked my pillow. And I woke up to face an endlessly nagging mother-in-law, crying children, endless housework, and the financial burden of a household I had to hold up alone. I grabbed the radio. And without looking back, walked out of the Milton family. Milton, go dream your big dreams. As soon as I stepped outside, I collided with a dazzlingly dressed Autumn. She was a broadcaster at the textile factory. Her voice loud and clear. But she spoke with a husky tone in front of Milton. "Milton, you're back?" I only found out that Milton was coming back from Milton's mother. So it seemed they had been in touch all along. Their communication faster than mine. There she was, bringing fruit as a gesture of goodwill. "Ah, Autumn is so thoughtful. Come in and sit down." Milton's mother, no longer domineering, eagerly invited her in, offering her tea. I stood aside, watching the two of them gaze at each other longingly after their reunion. The scene was a bit absurd, and not wanting to be a third wheel, I turned to leave. "Sylvia, where are you going? Am I interrupting your family reunion?" I rolled my eyes and replied, "Food can be eaten messily. But words shouldn't be said carelessly. Who's part of their family now?" Milton's face darkened. And he frowned as he said in a low voice, "Sylvia, if you're unhappy, take it out on me. Why are you taking it out on Autumn? It was always like this." Whether it was with Milton's mother or Autumn, Milton never stood on my side. He always blamed me. And for 50 years of marriage, I was never right in his eyes. It seemed I had been too easy to deal with before. I sneered, looking Milton up and down. "She's no good. And you disgust me even more." He looked like he was about to explode. His breathing uneven. "How have you turned into this? You're like a shrew." If I had known. If I had known. "You don't need to worry about whether I'm like a shrew. I won't marry you." Milton stared at me, eyes wide in disbelief. "What did you say?" I looked at the mirror hanging in the yard, which reflected my youthful face. And a strange mix of bitterness and excitement surged inside me. I was only 20. I should have a bright future ahead of me. Not be trapped in the Milton family. Shackled by the roles of daughter-in-law, wife, and mother. Are you deaf? Without me holding you back, shouldn't you be happier? Milton furrowed his brow even more tightly, and, to my surprise, began to explain himself. "What are you talking about? There's nothing between Autumn and me. I promised to marry you. And I won't break that promise. He looked at me with such sincerity that, had I not gone through a lifetime of betrayal, it would have been hard not to believe him. At that moment, Milton's mother came out with a teapot. Autumn took it from her and handed it to me. Sylvia, drink some tea to calm down. You and Milton have already made your promises. How could I possibly interfere with your relationship? She said this as she wiped away non-existent tears with her sleeve. She really knows how to put on an act. Not only did she interfere, but she's been doing so for 50 years. I've endured countless hardships, but I've never been as patient as her. My anger, which I had been suppressing, finally erupted in that moment. I swung my hand, and heard Autumn scream in pain. Ah, it hurts. Milton immediately ran over, pushing me aside. He carefully cradled her burned hand, gritting his teeth and saying, Sylvia, you've gone too far. Apologize to Autumn right now. His panicked expression made me lose my focus for a moment. In my past life, Milton's mother was bedridden, and I stayed by her side every night, preparing medicine. Getting burned was a regular occurrence. Did Milton know? He did. He would coldly watch me sit by the bed, using a heated silver needle to poke at blisters, and turn over and continue sleeping. But the next day, there would be a burn ointment by my bedside. At the time, I was so naive, thinking that he just didn't know how to express himself, but still cared about me deep down. Now, watching him tenderly lift Autumn's hand, asking her if it hurt, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. It turned out that he could care for someone, just not me. I extended my hand, staring blankly at my smooth skin, no longer covered in cracks or old wounds. This time, I wouldn't let myself be burned. His concern and burn ointment, I didn't need any of it. I walked away. Milton called after me. Sylvia, if you leave now, there's no chance for us anymore. Who cares about that chance? Self-righteous fool. When my parents heard I wouldn't marry Milton, they were overjoyed and killed a chicken. You finally see it clearly. He's just a bookish scholar with no substance. We'll introduce you to some nice young men. I bit into the chicken leg, mumbling through my mouthful. No rush. I'm going to take the college entrance exam. My father was so shocked that he dropped his chopsticks and checked my forehead. Are you okay? The college entrance exam has been suspended for years. Sylvia, dear, it'll resume in a couple of years. During this time, I'll study hard and become the first person in our family to attend university. My parents exchanged glances, thinking I had suffered some blow from the Milton family. For a moment, they didn't dare to say anything. I wiped my mouth clean and left on my bicycle to go to work. The bike had originally been a gift I bought for Milton, spending all the money I had to buy the bicycle ticket. In my past life, he would ride the bike I bought him to pick up Autumn, claiming he was just taking care of his colleague. I'd throw a fit, and he would say I was petty. In the end, I swallowed my grievances. My parents both worked for the supply and marketing cooperative. After middle school, I was also assigned a job as a counter salesperson. Although the salary was low, it was a stable job. No one knew back then that, in the 1990s, the supply and marketing cooperative would undergo reform, and everyone would eventually lose their jobs. Thinking back to the hardships of my previous life, working odd jobs, selling on the streets to put my kids through school, while Milton used the excuse of going south to do business, traveling with Autumn for leisure, I couldn't suppress my anger. Milton, at that time, was with his mother, getting oil from the ration tickets. I took the tickets without looking up and said, 5 yuan. Milton patted his pockets, his face suddenly turning red. I left in a hurry and didn't bring enough money. Can you cover the 2 yuan for me first? This wasn't the Milton who rode the wave of business success in the early 21st century. He was financially strapped, unable to even scrape together 5 yuan. Before, I'd grit my teeth and pay for him. But now, I would never be the fool again. No money? Then hurry up and leave. There are others in line. He lowered his head, unable to say a word. Look at you. Sylvia. You can buy a bike for yourself but can't spare 2 yuan? You still want to marry into the Milton family? Dream on. You're old enough to know better. Don't ruin my reputation. Do I have a marriage contract with Milton? Have we exchanged birth dates? Has he even visited my parents? Milton's mother's eyes were bloodshot with rage, pointing her finger at me as she cursed. You ungrateful little thing. Our Milton is educated, cultured, and can write beautiful calligraphy. What can you do? Stand here and sell rice, flour, and oil for the rest of your life. When my son arranges a good job for you, you'll be lucky just to get into the Milton family. Mom. Stop it. Milton pulled his mother away, throwing me a look that was full of hidden meaning. Sylvia, I was trying to give you an out, but you've really disappointed me. He dragged his mother away. The scene caused quite a stir, and soon it spread throughout the neighborhood. My father sat at the door, smoking one cigarette after another. Finally, heading to Philby, he slapped his thigh and said, "That's it. I'll arrange a matchmaker for you. You need to get married quickly so this whole thing blows over." I retorted irritably. "Sylvia here is going to take the college entrance exam. I'll never get married." "What do you know? I've already inquired about the son of the director of the textile factory. I guarantee you'll be happy with him." "I'm not going. He can drive. You know. He drives for the director. He has a bright future." "I'm not going." "What? He can drive? Does he have a car?" My father nodded. "I'm going. The day of the matchmaking meeting. I specially took the afternoon off." When Mason came to pick me up in his car, it attracted envious glances from all around, but the truth was, I just wanted a ride to the city's bookstore. English books were a rarity back then, and I couldn't find any in the county. Luckily, heading Sylvia, the city had some. Thanks to the car, I bought plenty of literature and history books to prepare for the college entrance exam 2 years later. After shopping, Mason blushed and asked me if I would accompany him to return the car. He wanted to treat me to a meal at a state-run restaurant. After having been his free driver for so long, I felt guilty and volunteered to pay for dinner. We parked at the textile factory's gate just as work was getting out. Milton and Autumn were coming out at the same time. I almost forgot. In my past life, after Milton returned to the city, he was assigned to the textile factory. I didn't know what they were talking about. But when Milton saw me in the car, he stopped in his tracks, rubbing his eyes in disbelief. Mason, ever the gentleman, opened the car door for me and even extended his arm to help me out. Before I could react, Milton had stormed over and grabbed my arm, nearly dragging me out of the car. I looked up and met his gaze, which was filled with a strange jealousy. Through gritted teeth, he said, "Sylvia, if you're not marrying me, then you've hooked up with him?" In the distance, Autumn rushed over, her face alternating between blue and pale. She gently tugged at Milton's arm and whispered, "Milton, there are so many people watching." Only then did Milton release his grip, though his chest still heaved, as if he were struggling to suppress his emotions. Mason, realizing what had just happened, shoved Milton aside and said coldly, "What are you doing to this lady? This behavior is disgraceful. She is my fiancée." The words hung in the air, and all three of them turned to look at me. "Are you deaf? We have no relationship whatsoever. If you keep this up, I will report you for tarnishing my reputation." Milton hesitated, his lips trembling. But even in his moment of anger, he couldn't afford to lose his hard-won job. He left, disgraced. I awkwardly thanked Mason. "Thank you for what you did just now. Sorry for the trouble. I'll treat you to a meal." During dinner, I made it clear to Mason that I had no intention of getting married anytime soon. Mason, not angry, said we could just be friends. I was just wondering, why did you buy so many books? "Because I want to take the college entrance exam and go to university." He gave me a look like my parents often did, as if I were a fool, but I quickly added, "I have a feeling the entrance exams will be reinstated soon, so I want to start preparing early." He nodded. "Then why are you buying English books? You're not going to take the English exam, are you?" That was my old dream. No, calling it a dream was a luxury. I only ever imagined myself knitting sweaters while Milton watched the news. At times, I would glance up, pretending not to notice the broadcasters traveling the world, confidently reporting international events in both languages. They wore sharp suits, their faces full of self-assurance. I wanted to be like that. I want to be an international journalist. A journalist? Isn't that like a broadcaster? Well, kind of. But more skilled than a broadcaster. He nodded thoughtfully, offering that if I ever needed more books, I could call on him. After things with Mason fell through, my father, not giving up, began looking into blind dates for me again. I enrolled in night school, going in and out every day, which saved me from some of the nagging. It had been a while since Milton had shown up. I thought he would never show his face again. But to my surprise, he appeared at my house. That night, after class, I walked into the house to find Milton playing chess with my father. My father, pulling me aside secretly, said, "Why didn't you tell me Milton has such a good job? He just got assigned as the head of the publicity department at the textile factory. You really need to seize this opportunity." I was a little speechless, responding irritably, "Sylvia, weren't you the one who didn't like him?" Sylvia wrung her hands. "Well, times have changed. Right? I think Milton is quite a fine young man." I looked at Milton, who was carrying rice and flour, and called him outside. "What are you doing at my house?" He seemed a bit awkward, then blurted everything out. "You said I never visited your parents before. Right?" I got the hint. "Sylvia, I know why you've changed so much. It's because I didn't give you a solid answer before. And that made you feel insecure. Which is why you went on blind dates and showed up at my workplace. You don't need to worry about the past. Given that you took care of my mom for 3 years, I'll still marry you." In the faint moonlight, I could almost see the faint flush on his cheeks. In the previous life, after 50 years of sleeping beside him, he never once blushed. Thinking of this, I felt my own face flush, though out of anger. "Are you still dreaming? Do you really think you're some kind of catch? Let Autumn marry you." He took a step forward, urgently trying to hold my hand as he explained. "I swear, there's nothing between me and Autumn. I just pity her. She has no parents. And her health isn't great. So I've been looking out for her." The same old excuse. Always using Autumn's need for help as an excuse to leave me behind. When I had frostbite on my hands and was washing clothes for the whole family, he went out to help Autumn air the bedding. When a flasher appeared in the area and followed women home from work, I cried in fear. Yet he was riding his bike to send Autumn home. Even when the child had a fever, and I called him in tears from the hospital, he merely responded, "Autumn's sick too. No one's taking care of her. Aren't you with the kids?" I shook off his hand, feeling like something creepy had crawled over my skin. "Sylvia, I think there's been a misunderstanding between us." His eyes fell on the English books I was holding, and he asked, surprised, "You're still reading books? I thought all you did was work non-stop." I wasn't surprised by Milton's thought. In my past life, I was too busy earning money and handling household chores to even listen to the radio or read the newspaper. Milton believed we had no common interests. And whenever I looked through his books, he'd warn me not to damage them. Later, I found tickets to a play between him and Autumn hidden in one of his books. When I confronted him, he acted as though it was completely natural. "You can't understand it anyway. What's the point of taking you there?" When smartphones became popular, he used one too, but his fingers clumsily swiped through a video. When I asked my daughter to teach me how to use it, he sat beside me, adjusting his glasses and making sarcastic remarks. "Your mom didn't read much and hasn't seen the world. She'll never learn." My whole life seemed to revolve around him and the kids, sacrificing my own interests and passions, spending every day calculating the household budget. To them, I became a person with no value. But I could have been so much more. I spoke coldly. "Why does it concern you? Don't act like you know me so well." Milton, in his kindness, reminded me, "That's an English book, right? It's hard. You won't understand. I can recommend some books for you." Before he could finish, Someone called from outside. Milton. Are you here? Autumn fell and hurt her leg. She's been sent to the clinic. Go check on her. His pupils dilated in shock. He looked at me. And hesitated. Sylvia. I need to go now. About us. I just wanted to get rid of him quickly so I could read. I waved my hand impatiently. Go on. Autumn's all alone. She must be so pitiful. He waved his hand in a hurry. Stuttering. It's not like that. It's really not what you think. Ugh. Forget it. I'll explain later. He rushed out. Just as he left, he came back. Can I borrow your bike? It's faster. I snapped. Get lost. Thanks to Autumn injuring her leg, Milton didn't bother me for a while. By the spring of 1976, the weather warmed up, and everything began to come back to life. Mason was heading to the city on some errands, so he kindly offered to take me along. Sitting in the car, I watched the young men and women bustling around the city, dressed in brightly colored shirts. I suddenly asked Mason, "Do you know where I can buy clothes wholesale?" He didn't ask any questions and took me to a large wholesale market. I pulled out the 200 yuan I had been saving up and, with a sweeping motion of my hand, bought 20 polyester shirts in various styles. Mason stared in disbelief. Buying so many? How long do you plan to wear them? I'm going to sell them. Most of the women working in the county wore plain, coarse cotton shirts. Though polyester wasn't the most skin-friendly fabric, its bright colors, durability, and resistance to wrinkles and tears made it a popular choice. I took the shirts back and set up shop at the entrance to the textile factory, where there were plenty of female workers. The unique designs quickly caught the attention of a large crowd of customers. I bought them for 10 yuan each and sold them for 15. In no time, I had sold several. It was clear no matter the era, the easiest money to make was from unmarried girls. When there was only one shirt left, Autumn, limping out of the factory, quickly snatched it. Give it to me. Sylvia. I have to support your business. Sorry. I snatched the shirt back, coldly saying, I'll sell to anyone. But not to you. Milton, just getting off work, was carrying a bag and noticed the crowd gathered around. Autumn, seeing him, suddenly had tears well up in her eyes. Why are you doing this to me? Have I done something wrong? Milton furrowed his brows, ready to defend her. But as he pushed through the crowd and saw me, his resolve faltered. Sylvia, what are you doing here? Are you really that short on money? Money's never enough. Come on. Everyone. Last one left. Anyone else want it? Autumn had influence in the factory. And when she wanted something, the other workers just exchanged glances, too hesitant to speak up. If no one else wants it, I'll keep it. It's 20 in the city. You know. If you don't want it, and I'll just keep it. I'll take it for 20. Milton pulled out 20 yuan and handed it to me. Autumn, now moved to tears, said, Milton, you're so good to me. Before she could finish, Milton hurriedly interrupted. This color suits you so well. I bought it for you. He blushed, speaking directly to me. Autumn stood frozen. Then, whatever else sigh, crying, hobbled off. Milton's face reddened in awkwardness. Seeing me frown and stay silent, he also felt embarrassed and left. I accepted the money, but I could never accept the shirt. On Sunday, I took the shirt to Milton's family. After 6 months, Milton's mother had softened considerably in her attitude. Without a word, she dragged me to sit down and immediately began to badmouth Autumn. Sylvia, you're such a sweetheart. You even bought me clothes. That Autumn. She's nothing but trouble. She can't carry a thing or lift a finger. All she does is run to Milton for help, making my son work like a dog. She doesn't even show me a little respect. Last time, I just asked her to sweep the yard. And do you know what she said? She said she was just a guest, and it wasn't her job to help. And now she thinks she can marry into the Milton family? Faft. Look at Milton now. Everything is going well for him. Why don't you marry him? I'm not some wicked mother-in-law. I'll treat you like my own daughter. I took a sip of tea and, smiling, asked, Milton's mom, You're being funny. Didn't you used to love her? You were always calling her Autumn this and Autumn that. Besides, Milton likes her too. I can't just break them up. Nonsense. Milton likes you. Just the other day, he told me he bought movie tickets and wanted to take you to see a film. In my previous life. By this time, Milton and I had already been married. But this time, even though I tried my best to avoid him, he kept coming after me. Things were heading in a direction I couldn't predict or control. All I could do was study hard for the upcoming college entrance exam, get into the capital, and escape the Milton family. The next day, after work, I was reciting math formulas while pushing my bicycle home, when Milton suddenly stopped me. He looked like he had made an effort to dress up, his hair neatly combed. Sylvia, may I invite you to the movies? I was interrupted from my studies and, irritated, snapped. No. He blushed, stammering. I've noticed you've changed a lot since I've been back. You seem to shine now. It's hard not to be attracted to you. Will you give me another chance? You like studying and reading. And once we're married, I won't interfere. My mom won't need you to help her. If we have kids, I'll take responsibility as a father. I never expected to hear those words coming from Milton. It was clear that he now understood that, as a son, husband, and father, he had responsibilities, and couldn't just leave everything to his wife. But in my previous life, he had irresponsibly left all the mess for me to clean up, while he lived carelessly. He stared intently into my eyes, desperately waiting for my response. It's not going to happen, I said coldly. I don't want to get married now. And I certainly won't marry you. But I'll treat you well. I swear. He pleaded. It doesn't matter if you treat me well or not. I don't need you. I don't need to pin my happiness on a man. I can live just fine on my own. Milton, stunned, crumpled the movie ticket in his hand. I knew that what I had just said was revolutionary. Even shocking. For the time. My goal in this rebirth was to escape the fate of my past life. But after reading so many books, after returning to this time when women had so little control over their lives, I realized I couldn't accept it. Marrying someone else or marrying Milton, there was no real difference. I had seen the future, where women could take control of their own lives. No, women were no longer limited to managing just their households. They could be doctors, lawyers, and anything else they aspired to be. A woman's eyes could be gentle enough to look upon pain, but sharp enough to overlook prosperity. A woman's hands could cook meals full of flavor, or steer ships as they sailed forward. I longed to live for my own value, not to live in the image of what society expected of women. Milton was stunned by the conviction in my eyes, his lips moving as if to argue. But in the end, all he could say was, "You've just read too many books. I'll wait until you figure it out." He left. And for a long time, didn't come to bother me again. Life continued in its quiet rhythm. I went from the supply and marketing cooperative to night school, then home again, following a simple routine every day. Occasionally, having fulfilled my obsession, I went with Mason to the city to buy some trendy clothes, saving up for my college tuition. Mason and I had become close. One day, he mysteriously asked me, "Are you close with that Autumn from our factory?" I shook my head, and he said, "She was having an affair with my cousin. My sister-in-law caught them and gave her a beating. They fired her. Don't tell anyone. Though. My uncle is covering it up for the sake of their reputation." Mason's cousin was the son of the textile factory director, infamous for being a local thug who used his family's connections to get away with anything. I recalled that in my previous life, Autumn had been laid off at this very moment. After that, Milton showered her with even more attention. If I hadn't been crying in the doorway, he would have eagerly brought her into the Milton family. Did it have anything to do with this? Never mind. I don't want to think about it. At least, it has nothing to do with me. In the summer of 1977, news came from the central government that the college entrance exams, closed for 10 years, would soon be reopening. My father treated me like a prophet and asked how I knew beforehand. I merely said I had dreamed about it, and also suggested he use the savings to buy property in Shenzhen. My father, half believing, finally gritted his teeth and made the purchase. Thinking of Shenzhen's skyrocketing real estate prices in the 21st century, I was ecstatic and rolling on my bed. What does it mean to have support in old age? Children certainly don't provide reliable rent income. By October, the revision phase was nearly over. I had gone through many materials about Capital University and decided to apply to the Capital Foreign Language University. Thankfully, having fully, I had self-taught English in advance. Although English wasn't a mandatory subject for most candidates that year, those applying for foreign language programs had to take an additional exam. Somehow, Milton found out that I was taking the college entrance exam and brought me a lot of teaching materials that weren't available on the market. He delivered them to my doorstep, saying, "Sylvia, I'm about to get promoted. Once you get into college, I'll be worthy of you. No matter how long it takes, I'll wait for you." Not far away, at the dark end of the alley, Autumn glared at me with resentment, her eyes burning with hatred. She looked much more haggard now. I heard that although Milton had been helping her, most of her wages were controlled by Milton's mother. Without my financial support, Milton's salary was barely enough to cover the household expenses. Where would there be extra money to sustain her lavish lifestyle? But I never imagined she would stoop to such dirty tricks. On a chilly October night, I was heading home with a flashlight in hand. As I passed by the Milton family home, I heard a deafening cry from inside. "Aha HH. I can't live anymore. You have to take responsibility for me." The cries woke up the neighbors, and everyone gathered with their lights on, eager to join the commotion. I saw Autumn, disheveled, curled up on the bed. Milton, hadn't so felt mad sigh, holding his head in anguish, was surrounded by empty and toppled bottles of liquor on the floor. When he saw me, the last bit of light in his eyes quickly faded. He messed up his hair and staggered to get off the bed, tripping over the empty bottles. The strong stench of alcohol made me instinctively cover my nose. "Sylvia, let me explain." Milton's mother rushed over in a robe, cursing and shooing the neighbors away. Before I left, I caught a glimpse of Milton trying to crawl toward me, his eyes brimming with tears, which fell to the concrete floor in drops. I pretended not to notice and didn't look back. In December 1977, the college entrance exams finally arrived. I knew this was not only my opportunity but also a challenge. After all, it was the first year, and the number of candidates was unprecedented, with an acceptance rate of less than 5. I wasn't in an advantageous position in the competition, so I quit my job and studied day and night without rest. Every day, I fell asleep holding my books, and the first thing I did upon waking was to review. On the day of the exam, Mason borrowed a car and, along with my parents, drove me to the exam hall. As the car passed the Milton family's house, I saw the bright red double happiness character shaking in the wind, like a leaf on the verge of falling. Today just so happened to be the day Autumn married into the Milton family. There were no guests, no feasts, only an empty front yard. I heard she had caused a scene at the textile factory, claiming Milton had forced her and that she was pregnant. In the end, Milton lost his promotion opportunity, and to keep his job, he married her. Milton was squatting by the door, no longer looking as bright and full of life as before. He lit a cigarette and stared blankly outside. As the car drove past, my gaze met his for a brief moment. But the car didn't stop, and neither did I. Through the rearview mirror, I saw him suddenly stand up, stumbling a few steps forward, his figure swaying. His silhouette grew smaller and smaller until the car turned a corner at the end of the alley, and he vanished completely. As we drove onto the main road, I was greeted by a bold red slogan: "Warmly welcome the candidates to be chosen by the nation." The road ahead was vast and open, like a new world being opened for me. In the spring of 1978, I received my admission letter from the Capital Foreign Language University, English major, and I heard the university even offered opportunities for studying abroad. I thought to myself, I was getting closer and closer to my dream. And Milton's smoking addiction had only worsened. Cigarette butts were thrown into empty liquor bottles, which were now stuffed to the brim. This year, he was 33 years old. A failure. And his life seemed to be moving backward. Autumn, with her messy hair, kicked over a bottle of liquor as she got out of bed. Hands on her hips. Cursing loudly. Good-for-nothing man. All you do is drink and smoke. Milton's mother, protective of her son, jumped up, cursing at the sky. You useless hen. You've been married to our family for 5 years. And you haven't had a child, nor do you do any work. I think you're not even worth one of Sylvia's little toes. Listening to the shouting and cursing between his wife and mother, Milton had long become accustomed to it. As long as they didn't fight, he pretended not to hear. It had been a long time since he'd heard Sylvia's name. No, actually, he had seen her on TV recently. Today is September 1, 1983. The Soviet Air Defense Forces mistakenly shot down Korean Air Flight 7, which had entered its airspace, killing 216 people. The report was provided by Capital TV reporter Sylvia. Yesterday, an international conference on the Palestinian issue was held in Geneva, attended by 138 countries, representatives from the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and observers from Western European nations. The report was provided by Capital TV reporter Sylvia. On December 7, 1983, Harrods department store in London was bombed by terrorists, resulting in 5 deaths and 91 injuries. The report was provided by Capital TV reporter Sylvia. On TV, she switched fluently between English and Chinese, radiating confidence. Yes, the Sylvia who he once thought should quietly marry him and live a mediocre life had become an international journalist. In an era of tense international relations, she had graduated from college and bravely stepped beyond the borders, leaving her mark around the world and bringing back reports for the country. Then, and he never saw her again. Because the TV was sold by Autumn. He knew. Yet he watched as she ordered another man to move the TV out, closing his eyes as if pretending to sleep. That night, the TV was gone, and Autumn ran off with someone else. But the next morning, railway workers came to inform him that she had died. She had tried to hop onto a train without a ticket, fell off, and was crushed to death. Neighbors' gossip never ceased, saying he was pathetic, drinking himself into a stupor while his wife ran off right under his nose. He ignored it, drinking one bottle after another. The next time he saw Sylvia was in the new millennium. At that time, he had lost his job and was doing odd jobs around the neighborhood. Initially, hadn't fulfilled my desire. He had planned to head south and start a small business, as advertised in the newspapers. But then Milton's mother fell ill, and there was no one at home to take care of her. He had no choice but to give up on his plans. Sylvia came back just as he was pushing a cart to deliver coal. She was driving a Lexus, dressed in fashionable and trendy clothes. She was now the star of the Capital TV station, and people often said, whenever Sylvia appears on TV, you know something major is happening internationally. Sylvia had long since moved her parents to the capital to enjoy their retirement. It was rumored that her return this time was to make a contribution to her hometown. When Milton's mother heard about it, she made suggestions, both openly and covertly. Son, you're still single. And Sylvia is getting on in years. She won't be able to get married. Why don't you talk to her? You've known each other for so long. Just lived together out of old affection. If anyone else had overheard, they would have burst out laughing. Yet, her mother continued rambling. And he, feeling increasingly frustrated, went outside to smoke. The community director came to find him. Hey Milton. Guess what I've arranged for you? Sylvia is back to visit the town. And I've managed to get you a spot. She'll be here soon. You'd better change into something presentable. Hey, Milton. Where are you going? Milton fled as if running for his life. He didn't want Sylvia to see how far he had fallen. But despite that, he still planned to hide in an alley, hoping to catch a glimpse of her from a distance. When Sylvia passed in front of the Milton family's house, she paused for a moment. He heard her gentle, clear voice. This house looks quite dilapidated. The records say it's an orphaned family. So let's allocate some extra aid. Then she walked away. Milton covered his face and collapsed onto the ground. as if he would never be able to stand up again.